Well, where do you think you're going? This area's
I
restricted.
just showed you my clearance. Step aside.
Yeah, anyone can print a badge. You don't even look like it.
I don't have time for this. I'm retrieving evidence for a court order.
Did I stutter? Back up, lady.
Lena Porter, state attorney.
The body cam snaps on to a blinding hallway glare. No setup, no pause, just instant conflict. A black woman in a tailored suit stands firm in the center of the frame, her composure tight as steel. Yet a rookie cop throws his body in front of her like a human barrier, fueled by ego and something far uglier. He crowds the lens, postures, tests her. You can feel the shift the moment he decides she doesn't belong here. Quick flashes, her controlled breath, his puffed-up stance, the air tightening between them. Then she raises something that should have ended the entire interaction. A gold credential that gleams under the fluorescent lights, cutting through the tension like a blade. But instead of stepping aside, the rookie doubles down, challenging her authority, her position, and even her right to stand in the space she's already cleared to enter. The camera catches the exact second disbelief turns into fury, and professionalism turns into a promise of consequences. What happens next didn't just end a rookie's career. It ignited headlines, triggered a $10 million settlement, and left the entire department scrambling to explain why their newest officer thought he had the power to block the state attorney herself. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that like and subscribe button. Stories like these need to be heard. Your support brings more truth to light. But what made this rookie so bold, and how did his own body cam become the evidence that destroyed him? Miami-Dade County Justice Building, Florida. 3rd floor, restricted evidence wing. 4:15 p.m. on a Wednesday in November. Fluorescent lights humming overhead. Polished marble floors reflecting institutional authority. The kind of building where prosecutors, judges, and law enforcement navigate overlapping jurisdictions with established protocols and mutual professional respect. Usually, Lena Porter was 41 years old, chief state attorney for Miami-Dade County's Public Corruption Unit. She'd been with the state attorney's office for 14 years, rising from junior prosecutor to heading one of the most politically sensitive divisions in Florida. Her current caseload included a major bribery case involving 2 city council members, a police captain, and a contractor accused of rigging municipal contracts worth $8 million. The case was scheduled for trial in 9 days. That afternoon, she'd received emergency notification that newly discovered evidence, financial records seized from the contractor's office, had been transferred to the restricted evidence wing for processing. Time was critical. The defense was filing motions to suppress. She needed to review the documents immediately to prepare prosecution strategy. She arrived at the evidence wing entrance at 4:12 p.m., her state attorney credentials clearly visible on a lanyard around her neck, her briefcase containing the court order authorizing evidence access, her phone showing email confirmation from the Evidence Control Unit supervisor approving her entry. Officer Marcus Hayes was with her, a 16-year veteran with the State Attorney's Office Security Division who'd escorted dozens of prosecutors through this exact process hundreds of times. The 3rd floor security checkpoint was normally staffed by experienced officers familiar with the building's regular personnel. But that afternoon, due to shift coverage gaps, the post was manned by Officer John Reeves, 23 years old, 3 months with Miami-Dade Police, recently assigned to courthouse security as his first solo posting. Reeves had minimal training for the assignment. His academy education covered street patrol, traffic enforcement, and arrest procedures. But courthouse security protocols, evidence handling regulations, and recognition of prosecutorial authority, that received a 2-hour orientation he'd completed 4 days earlier. The body cam footage shows Lena approaching the checkpoint with professional efficiency. She's carrying her briefcase, walking with purpose, her credentials visible. Hayes is beside her, also displaying his security badge. Standard procedure. 2 authorized personnel seeking routine evidence access. Reeves,
stepped directly into their path, his body language aggressive from the first moment. "Whoa, where do you think you're going? This area is restricted." Lena stopped, her expression showing mild surprise but professional patience. She lifted her credentials, holding them at eye level. "I just showed you my clearance. I'm State Attorney Lena Porter. This is Officer Hayes from our security division. We're here to access evidence under court order." The body cam captured Reeves' face clearly. No recognition, no professional courtesy. Just immediate dismissiveness tinged with something else, the assumption that this black woman in a suit, despite her credentials and explanation, couldn't possibly have legitimate authority. "Anyone can print a badge. You don't even look like it."
The statement hung in the air, heavy, coded, unmistakable in its implication. Hayes' voice carried warning. "Officer, I've worked security in this building for 16 years. Ms. Porter is Chief State Attorney for Public Corruption. Verify her credentials through your dispatch if you have concerns, but do not block authorized personnel from performing their duties." Reeves ignored him, his attention fixed on Lena. His voice rose. "I'm retrieving evidence for a court order. You need to step aside immediately." Reeves moved closer, puffing his chest. "Did I stutter? Back up, lady." Hayes stepped between them, his voice dropping to controlled authority. "Officer Reeves, I'm instructing you as senior security personnel to verify and allow access. You're currently in violation of Florida Statute 843.02, obstruction of justice. If you do not comply immediately, I will have you arrested and charged." That threat, delivered by someone who actually had the authority to follow through, should have shocked Reeves into compliance. Instead, it triggered his ego's final desperate defense. "You threatening me?" His voice cracked with indignation. "You're not even supposed to be here." 3 security cameras captured different angles of the hallway. The footage would later show Lena standing calmly, with credentials displayed, Hayes positioned professionally to her left, Reeves blocking their path with increasingly agitated body language, and several staff members who'd emerged from offices to witness the confrontation.
One staff member, a paralegal named Jennifer Martinez, had begun recording on her phone. Her footage captured audio the body cam missed. Hushed conversations among witnesses expressing disbelief at Reeves' behavior. Hayes made one final attempt at de-escalation. "Officer, I'm going to reach for my phone to call your supervisor directly. Do not interpret that movement as a threat." He slowly pulled his phone and dialed. The call connected to Sergeant Linda Morrison, Reeves' direct supervisor. Hayes explained the situation clearly, concisely, professionally. Morrison's response was immediate. "Put Reeves on the phone." Reeves refused to take it. "I'm handling the situation." The body cam captured Morrison's voice through Hayes' phone speaker, loud enough to be clearly audible. "Officer Reeves, this is a direct order. Verify the credentials and allow passage immediately. State Attorney Porter has full authorization to access that wing." Reeves's face flushed red. His hands were shaking. He'd been publicly contradicted by dispatch, by senior security, and now by his own supervisor. Every authority figure was telling him he was wrong, and instead of accepting correction, his ego demanded validation. His voice rose to near shouting, "This is my checkpoint. I determine who passes." Lena exchanged a glance with Hayes. Her expression showed not fear, but weary recognition. She'd seen this before. The entitled officer, the abuse of power, the racism disguised as protocol. She'd prosecuted cases built on exactly this behavior. She pulled out her phone and began recording. "Officer Reeves, badge number 4729. You are currently obstructing a state attorney in performance of official duties, ignoring directives from your chain of command, and creating an incident that will result in formal complaints and potential criminal charges. I am documenting this encounter for—" "Don't record me." His hand shot out toward her phone. Do you think he would have acted the same way if Lena wasn't a black woman in power? What happened in the next 7 seconds was captured from 4 different angles. Reeves' body cam, security camera 3A mounted on the ceiling, security camera 3B at the end of the hallway, and Jennifer Martinez's cell phone video.
When played side by side in subsequent legal proceedings, the footage told an undeniable story of assault and battery committed by a law enforcement officer against a state official. Reeves lunged toward Lena's phone, his movements sudden and aggressive. Hayes stepped forward instinctively, putting himself between them. That movement, protective, professional, completely reasonable, triggered Reeves's final catastrophic decision. This is your last warning. Back up.
Lena stood her ground, her state attorney credentials still held high in her left hand, her phone recording in her right. "I am the state attorney. Move!" Reeves' hand shot out and connected with Lena's shoulder. The shove was violent. Not a touch, not a guide, but forceful propulsion designed to move her body backward. The security camera footage shows her stumbling, her briefcase falling, her body tilting off balance. She fell backward, her shoulder and hip impacting the marble floor with sickening force. Her head snapped back but didn't hit. She'd managed to tuck her chin at the last instant, training from years of self-defense classes preventing worse injury. The body cam captured Reeves' immediate response. Not horror at what he'd done, not concern for whether she was injured. Justification. "Stop resisting! Stop resisting!" But Lena wasn't resisting. She was on the ground, stunned, her credentials scattered beside her, her phone still recording from where it had slid across the floor. Hayes dropped to his knees beside her. "Miss Porter, don't move. Are you injured?" Multiple voices erupted simultaneously. Jennifer's cell phone video captured staff members shouting, "He just assaulted her! Someone call 911! What the hell is wrong with you?" A security guard who'd been monitoring cameras came running from the command post. He took one look at Lena on the ground, at Reeves standing over her, and his face went pale. "Oh my God, that's the state attorney!" Reeves' expression shifted, his face registering delayed recognition and growing horror. He took a step back, his hands rising. She wasn't authorized. She wasn't supposed to." Hayes helped Lena to a sitting position. His voice was tight with controlled fury. "You just committed assault and battery on a chief state attorney. Don't say another word. Don't move. Don't touch anything." Lena's voice, though shaken, carried absolute authority. "All footage is to be preserved immediately. Building security, lock down all recordings from this hallway for the past 30 minutes. Officer Hayes, contact Internal Affairs and file formal complaint for assault, obstruction of justice, and violation of state officials' authority. And someone call my office. I need assistant state attorneys here within 15 minutes." The security guard helped Lena to her feet. She was visibly shaken, but composed, her years of courtroom experience keeping her focused. Her shoulder throbbed, her hip would bruise significantly, but she was conscious, mobile, and absolutely determined that this encounter would have consequences. Reeves reached for his body cam. The security footage captured him attempting to turn it off, but courthouse body cams had auto-lock features preventing deactivation during incidents. His attempt failed, preserved forever on the recording that would destroy his career.
Within 7 minutes of Lena hitting the floor, the third floor of the Miami-Dade County Justice Building transformed into controlled chaos. Multiple supervisors converged simultaneously. Sergeant Morrison responding to Hayes' call. Internal Affairs investigators responding to automated incident alerts triggered by the assault report, and Building Security Command scrambling to secure all evidence and footage. Reeves stood frozen, his face cycling through emotions: panic, defiance, fear, confusion. He tried to speak as Morrison arrived. "Sergeant, she wasn't authorized. I was following protocol." Morrison cut him off with a raised hand. "Don't say anything. You're under investigation. Step away from everyone and wait for IA." But Reeves couldn't stop defending himself. "I'm telling you, she tried to force entry into restricted." Sergeant Morrison's voice dropped to barely controlled fury. "Officer Reeves, the woman you just assaulted is Chief State Attorney Lena Porter. She oversees prosecution of public corruption cases, including police misconduct. She had full authorization confirmed by Security Command, by myself, and by Officer Hayes, who has 16 years in this building. You ignored directives from your chain of command. You refused to verify credentials. You escalated a routine authorized access into physical assault. Do you understand the magnitude of what you've done?" The words seemed to finally penetrate. Reeves' face went pale. "I didn't know she was—" Morrison's response was sharp. "You didn't verify. That's the problem." Internal Affairs Lieutenant Marcus Chen arrived with 2 investigators. He took immediate command of the scene, his voice carrying administrative authority. "Officer Reeves, you're suspended, effective immediately, pending investigation. Surrender your service weapon and badge. Everyone who witnessed this incident will provide statements. All footage is being preserved under evidence chain of custody." Lena had moved to a nearby office where building medical staff were evaluating her injuries. Paramedics arrived despite her insistence she didn't need ambulance transport. They documented visible bruising forming on her shoulder, checked for signs of concussion, and recommended hospital evaluation that she declined in favor of being examined by her personal physician. But she insisted on remaining in the building long enough to provide her official statement. She sat in a conference room, her shoulder throbbing, and dictated a formal complaint that would become the foundation of both criminal charges and civil lawsuit.
At approximately 4:15 p.m., I arrived at the 3rd floor evidence wing checkpoint to access materials under authorized court order. I presented my state attorney credentials clearly to Officer John Reeves. He refused to acknowledge my authority, made racially charged comments suggesting I didn't look like someone who should have access, ignored directives from Security Command and his supervisor to verify credentials, escalated the encounter through aggressive verbal and physical intimidation, and ultimately committed assault and battery by shoving me forcefully, causing me to fall and sustain injury. This assault was unprovoked, unjustified, and represents both criminal misconduct and civil rights violation. Lieutenant Chen asked the critical question, "Ms. Porter, in your professional opinion as state attorney, do you believe racial bias played a role in Officer Reeves' actions?" Lena's response was measured but unequivocal. "Officer Reeves told me I didn't look like someone authorized for access despite seeing my credentials. He escalated with a black woman showing state authority in ways I have never witnessed officers do with white prosecutors. His assumption that my credentials were false, his refusal to verify despite multiple directives, and his ultimate use of force all indicate a pattern consistent with racial profiling and bias against black authority figures." Within 2 hours, local news had the story. By evening, it was national. By the next morning, it had exploded across social media with hashtag State Attorney Assault and Racism in Uniform trending. The footage, all 4 angles, was obtained through public records request and played on every network. The visual was damning. A professional black woman in business attire, showing credentials, being shoved by a white rookie officer who'd ignored every directive to stand down. District Judge Martha Williams, who was overseeing the corruption case Lena was prosecuting, issued a rare public statement. "The assault on Chief State Attorney Porter is an affront to the rule of law and the dignity of this court. Those who administer justice must themselves be subject to justice when they commit violence against officers of the court." The Miami-Dade police chief held a press conference within 24 hours. His statement was defensive and inadequate. "We are investigating the incident thoroughly. Officer Reeves has been suspended pending review. We take allegations of misconduct seriously." That statement lasted less than a day before public pressure forced a stronger response acknowledging the severity and promising accountability. Do you think the department reacted fast enough, or only because they realized who she was?
The investigation into Officer John Reeves quickly expanded beyond individual misconduct to expose systemic failures in training, supervision, and accountability. Internal Affairs obtained Reeves' complete training records. What they found was damning. His academy performance evaluations included multiple warnings, demonstrates difficulty with de-escalation scenarios, tends toward assumption-based rather than evidence-based decision-making. Recommend additional training before field assignment.
Those recommendations were noted and ignored. Staffing shortages meant Reeves was pushed through to active duty with minimal remedial training. His courthouse security orientation, the training that should have prepared him to recognize and properly interact with prosecutors, judges, and other legal personnel, consisted of a 4-hour classroom session. No practical scenarios. No assessment of his ability to verify credentials or handle authority challenges. Just PowerPoint slides about building layout and radio codes. Investigators also uncovered Reeves' history of complaints that predated the assault on Lena. During his 3 months of service, 2 formal complaints had been filed. Complaint number 1, aggressive interaction with a Hispanic attorney attempting to access courthouse records. Attorney alleged Reeves demanded proof you're really a lawyer, despite proper identification. Complaint number 2, confrontational encounter with a black paralegal carrying files. Reeves allegedly questioned whether she'd stolen those documents before verifying her courthouse employee badge. Both complaints had been dismissed with notations like officer was being cautious and no policy violation occurred. No retraining was mandated. No pattern recognition flagged the issue. The investigation expanded to examine broader courthouse security culture. What emerged was troubling. Security officers operated with minimal supervision and vague directives about maintaining access control. There was no clear protocol for verifying credentials when an officer had doubts. There was no escalation procedure requiring supervisor consultation before denying access. And there was no meaningful accountability when officers made errors. Constitutional law professor Jamal Thompson provided expert analysis in subsequent interviews. Officer Reeves didn't act in a vacuum. He acted as a product of a system that provided inadequate training, failed to address pattern complaints, and essentially told rookie officers to rely on their gut instincts rather than proper verification procedures. When those gut instincts are shaped by racial bias, consciously or unconsciously, you get exactly what happened here. A black woman with full authority being treated as a threat. The case became symbolic. If the chief state attorney, someone with institutional power, legal expertise, and documented authority, could be assaulted inside her own building, what happened to ordinary black citizens interacting with officers who made the same biased assumptions? Civil rights organizations seized on the case as evidence of systemic racism within law enforcement. Protests were organized outside the Justice Building. Advocacy groups demanded comprehensive reforms. And Lena herself, once she'd recovered from her injuries, became vocal about the need for change. In an interview with CNN 2 weeks after the assault, she stated, "I was fortunate. I had credentials that should have protected me. I had a security officer advocating for me. I had multiple cameras recording. I had institutional knowledge of my rights, and I still got assaulted." Think about every black person who lacks those protections. Every person stopped by an officer who decides they don't belong somewhere. Every person whose presence is questioned, whose credentials are doubted, whose authority is denied based on appearance rather than evidence. This isn't about one bad officer. This is about a system that enables bad officers to act on bias without consequence. Do you think this exposes a bad apple or a rotten orchard?
The legal consequences for Officer John Reeves and the Miami-Dade Police Department unfolded on parallel tracks: criminal prosecution and civil lawsuit. The criminal case moved swiftly. The state attorney's office, recognizing obvious conflict of interest, referred prosecution to the Florida Attorney General. Reeves was charged with battery on a state official, felony; obstruction of justice, misdemeanor; official misconduct, misdemeanor. He pled guilty to all charges in exchange for probation and permanent prohibition from law enforcement. His statement to the court was brief. "I made terrible judgments. I let my ego override my training. I accept responsibility." He was 23 years old, 3 months into his career, and permanently barred from ever wearing a badge again. The civil lawsuit was more complex and more consequential. Lena filed in federal court under 42 U.S.C. 1983, alleging violation of her civil rights, and included state law claims for assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligent training/supervision. Named defendants: Officer John Reeves, individual capacity; Sergeant Rinda Morrison, supervisory liability; Police Chief Robert Martinez, administrative failure; and Miami-Dade County, municipal liability under Monell. The damages sought: $10 million in compensatory and punitive damages. The evidence was overwhelming. 4 angles of video, witnesses corroborating every detail, medical documentation of injuries, expert testimony on bias, training records proving systemic negligence, complaint history showing pattern recognition failure. The county's attorneys evaluated the case and reached an unavoidable conclusion: this would not survive summary judgment. A jury would see the footage of a black state attorney being shoved for the ground for showing credentials, and they would deliver a verdict that would devastate the county's budget. Settlement negotiations began within 3 months. The county's initial offer, $2 million plus policy reforms, was rejected immediately. Lena's attorneys demanded full accountability: $10 million, comprehensive reforms, public acknowledgement of wrongdoing, and federal monitoring. The final settlement, announced 6 months after the assault: $10 million paid to Lena Porter for assault, civil rights violations, and emotional distress.
Hey, what are you doing out here? You don't live in this neighborhood.
I'm not bothering anyone. Keep moving.
Don't tell me what to do. You're loitering.
Officer, do not escalate. I'm working.
Working? Yeah, planning your next robbery.
Undercover FBI. You just blew a federal operation. This will cost your department a lot.
The body cam is shaking as the rookie officer rushes forward. No intro, no explanation, just pressure from the very first frame. A black woman stands alone on the sidewalk outside Willow Creek Estates. Calm, focused, but the tension you feel is instant. Then the officer snaps. "Hey, what are you doing out here? You don't live in this neighborhood." She doesn't flinch. "I'm working. Keep moving." But what happens next, this single ignorant decision, did more than ruin a federal investigation. It triggered national outrage, tore through social media, and sparked one of the most expensive federal interference lawsuits the city has ever faced. $12 million. A shaky flash, her gold FBI credentials hitting the camera frame. Undercover FBI. You just blew a federal operation. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared. But what pushed this rookie officer to escalate so fast? And what did he never expect the body cam to capture? Willow Creek Estates, Georgia, an affluent gated community 20 miles north of Atlanta. Manicured lawns, luxury vehicles in driveways, property values averaging $850,000. The kind of neighborhood where homeowners associations enforce paint color codes and security patrols check license plates of unfamiliar vehicles. It was 6:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in September. Golden hour sunlight filtered through oak trees lining pristine streets. Quiet, peaceful, exclusive. Special Agent Kendra Mitchell had been conducting surveillance for 3 weeks. She was 34 years old, 8 years with the FBI's Atlanta Field Office, assigned to the Violent Crime Task Force. Her current investigation involved a human trafficking ring operating across 3 states: procurement, transportation, exploitation. The kind of case that required months of patient observation, careful documentation, and absolute operational security. The target residence was 2847 Magnolia Drive, a 2-story colonial owned by Marcus Chen, a suspected facilitator who'd been linked to 6 missing persons cases. Mitchell's surveillance had confirmed patterns: vehicles arriving late evening, brief visits, occupants matching descriptions of trafficking victims. She was building evidence for a federal warrant, evidence that required visual confirmation of Chen's movements, license plate documentation, and timing patterns.
That evening, she was positioned on Oakwood Lane, a perpendicular street offering sightlines to Chen's driveway. She wore business casual clothing, dark slacks, a plain blouse, comfortable shoes. Nothing tactical, nothing that screamed law enforcement. Her service weapon was concealed. Her FBI credentials were in her jacket pocket. Her surveillance notes were in a nondescript notebook that looked like any professional's daily planner. She was standing near a street sign, phone in hand, appearing to anyone who glanced her way like someone waiting for a ride or checking directions. Standard undercover protocol. Blend in. Maintain operational security. Document without drawing attention. Officer Ryan Caldwell had been with the Willow Creek Police Department for exactly 4 months. At 23 years old, he was fresh from the academy, assigned to evening patrol, eager to prove himself. His training evaluations had noted concerns. Demonstrates tendency toward assumption-based decisions. Should improve assessment skills before solo assignment. But staffing shortages meant rookies were patrolling alone within weeks of graduation. That evening, Caldwell received a call from Willow Creek Security. Resident complaint. Suspicious black female on Oakwood Lane. Doesn't belong to any household. Standing around for over 30 minutes. Residents are concerned.
Caldwell responded within 3 minutes. His body cam activated automatically as he exited his patrol car. The footage shows his approach, fast, aggressive, no tactical assessment. He saw a black woman in an affluent white neighborhood, and his training failed him completely. Instead of professional inquiry, he made immediate assumptions. The body cam audio picks up his first words, delivered with hostile authority. "Hey, what are you doing out here? You don't live in this neighborhood." Kendra's response was controlled, professional, designed to de-escalate without revealing her operation. "I'm working. Keep moving." But Officer Caldwell heard defiance where there was actually federal authority. He stepped closer, his voice rising. "Working? Doing what? This is a private community. You're trespassing." The body cam captured Kendra's face clearly. No panic, no guilt, just immediate recognition that this officer was about to compromise months of work. Her voice remained calm, but carried unmistakable warning. "Officer, you need to step back and return to your vehicle. I'm conducting business that doesn't concern you." Caldwell's face flushed. The body cam shows his expression shifting from suspicion to wounded ego. "Who do you think you're talking to? Show me ID now." Kendra glanced toward Shen's residence. A vehicle was in the driveway. Target vehicle she'd been documenting for weeks. Chen was visible through the front window. This was exactly the kind of moment she needed to observe, and this rookie cop was destroying it. "I don't have to show you anything. I'm not violating any law. Move along." What would you have done in her position? Let me know in the comments. Officer Caldwell's training had emphasized compliance. Commands must be followed. Authority must be respected. Resistance indicates guilt. But his training had failed to emphasize assessment, the critical skill of evaluating whether authority should be exercised in the first place. "You're loitering in a private community. That's trespassing. I'm ordering you to provide identification or you'll be detained." Kendra's jaw tightened. The body cam captured her frustration, barely contained beneath professional composure. "This is not a private community. This is a public street. I have every legal right to be here, and you have zero probable cause to demand identification." Caldwell reached for his radio. "Dispatch, I have a subject refusing lawful commands at Oakwood and Magnolia. Need backup." Before dispatch could respond, Kendra made a calculated decision. The surveillance was compromised anyway. Chen had likely noticed the patrol car. The operation was blown. So she reached slowly into her jacket pocket and pulled out her FBI credentials.
The body cam captured the moment clearly. Gold badge, FBI emblem, special agent credentials with her photo, name, and serial number. She held it at eye level, 2 feet from Caldwell's face. FBI, Special Agent Kendra Mitchell. You are interfering with a federal investigation. Stand down immediately. The body cam shows Caldwell's face. Not recognition, not apology, skepticism, and defensive anger. He squinted at the credentials, his voice dripping with disbelief. Fake badge. You people buy these online all the time. Kendra's eyes widened slightly, the first break in her professional composure. The body cam audio picked up her response, measured but carrying steel beneath. You people. Officer, you need to verify these credentials through your dispatch right now. Call the FBI Atlanta field office. They will confirm my identity and active status. Caldwell waved dismissively. I'm not calling anyone until you're properly identified. Turn around, hands behind your back. At Chen's residence, movement. The target vehicle backing out of the driveway. Chen leaving. 3 weeks of surveillance positioning about to be wasted because a rookie cop couldn't recognize federal credentials. Kendra's voice rose for the first time. That vehicle is my surveillance target. You are actively destroying a federal operation. Caldwell grabbed her arm. Stop yelling. You're under arrest for disorderly conduct. The body cam captured everything. Kendra's badge falling from her hand. Caldwell's fingers digging into her bicep, the target vehicle driving past them, Chen's face visible through the window, clearly noting the commotion. The entire operation compromised in real time. Kendra tried to pull her arm free, not to resist arrest, but instinctive reaction to unexpected physical contact. Caldwell interpreted it as resistance. Stop resisting! His voice cracked with panic and adrenaline. I'm not resisting. I'm an FBI agent, and you just destroyed a human trafficking investigation. Have you ever seen an officer ignore ID like this? Drop your thoughts below. What happened next was captured from 2 angles. Caldwell's body cam provided close-up documentation of every constitutional violation. A resident across the street, drawn by the commotion, recorded cell phone video that captured the broader scene. Caldwell yanked Kendra's arm and spun her toward his patrol car. The body cam shows her face striking the vehicle's hood, not violently, but with enough force that the impact was audible. Her FBI credentials lay on the ground where they'd fallen. Gold badge catching evening sunlight. Kendra's training emphasized de-escalation even under assault. Her voice remained controlled despite obvious pain. You are interfering with a federal investigation. Stop now. Verify my credentials. Call your supervisor. This is your last chance to correct this mistake. Caldwell pulled handcuffs from his belt. Stop resisting arrest! The cell phone video shows clearly. Kendra wasn't resisting. Her hands were raised, her body language non-threatening, her movements deliberate and controlled. But Caldwell was operating on autopilot. Suspect refuses commands. Suspect challenges authority. Suspect gets arrested. The script he had learned in academy training, applied without any critical thinking. He grabbed her right wrist and wrenched it behind her back at an angle that made Kendra gasp in pain. The body cam captured her next words. I am Special Agent Kendra Mitchell, FBI badge number 47832. You are assaulting a federal officer. Every second of this is being recorded.
Caldwell's hands were shaking as he applied the handcuffs. Too tight. The body cam shows metal digging into her wrists. You have the right to remain silent. As he recited Miranda rights, Kendra kept her voice steady for the recording. I am asserting my right to contact FBI supervisors immediately. I am asserting my right to medical evaluation for the injury you just caused to my wrist. I am asserting my right to have these handcuffs removed, as I am a federal agent being unlawfully detained. Caldwell lifted her FBI credentials from the ground and examined them. For 3 seconds, doubt crossed his face. The badge looked authentic. The credentials were professionally printed. The photo matched the woman he'd just arrested. But admitting a mistake at this point meant admitting he'd assaulted a federal agent. So instead of correcting course, he doubled down. I'll verify these at the station. Get in the car. The cell phone video captured the moment a second patrol car arrived. Officer Sarah Martinez stepped out, a 12-year veteran who had been called as backup. She approached, assessed the scene, and immediately recognized catastrophic error. Her voice carried urgency and barely concealed panic. "Caldwell, what are you doing?" Subject was loitering, refused ID, resisted detention. Martinez walked to where the FBI credentials lay and picked them up. Her face went pale. "These are real. She's FBI. Why didn't you verify before detaining her?" "She said they were fake." "Did you call it in? Did you check with dispatch? Did you contact FBI Atlanta?" Caldwell had no answer. Martinez turned to Kendra, her voice apologetic and professional. "Ma'am, I'm removing the handcuffs immediately. This was a mistake." "Not a mistake." Kendra's voice was cold, controlled, devastating. "A mistake is writing down the wrong address. This was racial profiling that destroyed a federal investigation. I told him I was FBI. I showed credentials. He called them fake. He physically assaulted me. He compromised 3 weeks of surveillance targeting a human trafficking operation. This wasn't error. This was incompetence enabled by bias." The handcuffs came off. Kendra rubbed her wrists, red marks already forming. Martinez retrieved Kendra's phone and credentials, handing them over with visible regret. Another vehicle arrived, a black SUV with government plates. 2 FBI supervisors stepped out, faces grim. They'd been monitoring the operation remotely and responding to Kendra's emergency signal, a coded text she'd managed to send before Caldwell grabbed her. Special Agent Reed, Kendra's supervisor, approached Caldwell with controlled fury. His voice was measured, but carrying weight that made the rookie shrink. "Officer, I'm Special Agent Reed, FBI Atlanta Field Office. You just interfered with an active federal investigation. You assaulted one of my agents. You destroyed operational security that took 3 months to establish. And you did it all while being recorded from multiple angles. Do you understand the severity of what just occurred?" Caldwell's voice was barely audible. I thought she was lying." "You thought an FBI agent presenting federal credentials was lying." Reed pulled out his phone. "I'm documenting this scene. Every detail, every witness, every violation. Your department will be receiving formal notification within the hour. Your chief will be contacted by my SAC, and you should contact a lawyer. Be honest. Was this racism or ego? I want your take in the comments."
Within 2 hours, the FBI's Atlanta field office had submitted a formal incident report to the Willow Creek Police Department, the Georgia Peace Officer Standards and Training Council, and the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. The report was comprehensive and damning. Officer Ryan Caldwell initiated contact with Special Agent Kendra Mitchell without probable cause, based solely on her race and presence in an affluent neighborhood, despite clear identification as FBI, despite presentation of federal credentials, despite multiple warnings about federal operation interference. Officer Caldwell proceeded with unlawful detention and physical assault. The incident resulted in complete compromise of a 3-month human trafficking investigation, potential loss of prosecution opportunity, and civil rights violations documented on multiple video sources. By Wednesday morning, the Bodycam footage had been leaked to local news. By noon, it was national. By evening, it was international. The hashtag #LoiteringWhileBlack trended within 24 hours. Social media erupted with commentary, outrage, and countless stories from Black professionals who'd experienced similar profiling. The comparison clips were devastating. Black doctors in scrubs questioned outside hospitals. Black professors stopped on their own university campuses. Black executives detained outside their own office buildings. CNN legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin provided commentary that captured the scope. This isn't just about one bad stop. This is about a rookie officer so conditioned to see Black people as suspicious that he couldn't recognize federal credentials 2 feet from his face. And it's about a system that put him on solo patrol after 4 months despite training evaluations noting poor judgment. Thursday afternoon, FBI Director Christopher Wray made a rare public statement. The FBI takes interference with our investigations extremely seriously. When that interference is compounded by apparent racial bias and assault on one of our agents, it becomes a matter of both operational security and civil rights. We have full confidence in Special Agent Mitchell's professionalism and are supporting her completely. Officer Caldwell was placed on immediate administrative leave. His body cam footage was reviewed by Internal Affairs. His training records were subpoenaed. His academy evaluations were examined. And every single review reached the same conclusion. He should never have been cleared for solo patrol. The Willow Creek police chief held a press conference Friday morning. His statement was defensive and tone-deaf. Officer Caldwell was responding to a resident complaint about suspicious activity. He followed department protocols for investigating potential trespassing. While we regret the misunderstanding, the officer acted within his training. That statement lasted 6 hours before public backlash forced a retraction and apology. Because the body cam showed clearly Caldwell hadn't followed any protocol. He'd made assumptions, ignored evidence, rejected credentials, and escalated through ego rather than assessment. Should rookies even patrol alone? Let me know.
Monday morning, exactly 6 days after the incident, Special Agent Kendra Mitchell filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in the Northern District of Georgia. The complaint was 89 pages, meticulously documented, and sought $12 million in damages. Named defendants: Officer Ryan Caldwell, individual capacity; Police Chief Michael Warren, supervisory liability; Training Coordinator Lieutenant James Foster, inadequate training; and the City of Willow Creek, municipal liability. The legal claims were comprehensive: violation of Fourth Amendment rights, unlawful detention and seizure, violation of 14th Amendment rights, equal protection, racial discrimination, assault and battery, false arrest and imprisonment, interference with federal investigation under 18 U.S.C. Section 111, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent training and supervision, municipal liability under Monell for deliberate indifference. But it was the evidence section that made the case unbeatable. Body cam footage showing the entire encounter, cell phone video from independent witness, FBI incident reports documenting operational damage, medical documentation of wrist injuries, expert testimony on racial profiling patterns, Caldwell's training records showing inadequate preparation, and most damaging, evidence of prior complaints about racial profiling in Willow Creek that the department had dismissed.
The city's attorneys reviewed the evidence and immediately recognized they had no defense. Caldwell's own body cam proved every element of the claims. The FBI's documentation was federal record. The witness video corroborated everything. And Caldwell's statement that the credentials were fake was recorded on his own equipment. Discovery revealed even more damaging information. Over the previous 2 years, Willow Creek PD had received 17 complaints about racial profiling in traffic stops and street encounters. 15 involved black citizens in affluent areas. All 17 were dismissed with notations like insufficient evidence or officer discretion appropriate. Internal emails showed supervisors were aware of this pattern. One email from Chief Warren to his command staff: "We're getting pressure from homeowners about maintaining property values and community appearance. Officers should be proactive about addressing individuals who don't appear to belong in residential areas." That email, coded language for racial profiling, became Exhibit A in proving municipal liability. Caldwell's deposition was scheduled in January. He appeared with his attorney, clearly coached, and provided answers that contradicted his own body cam footage at nearly every turn. Why did you approach Special Agent Mitchell? Resident complaint about suspicious activity. What specifically was suspicious? She was standing on a public street for an extended period. That's not illegal. What made it suspicious? She didn't appear to be a resident. How did you determine that? Silence.
Officer Caldwell, was it because she was black in a predominantly white neighborhood? No, I don't see race. But you assumed she didn't belong based on appearance? I was responding to a complaint. The complaint said, black female who doesn't belong, correct? Yes. And you agreed with that assessment without any investigation? No answer. The deposition continued for 6 hours. Every answer either contradicted evidence or revealed racial bias. When asked why he'd called FBI credentials fake, he said they looked too official, like prop badges. When asked why he hadn't verified, he said, I intended to at the station. When asked why he'd physically grabbed her after she identified as FBI, he said she was becoming agitated. The body cam showed she'd been calm throughout. Settlement negotiations began in February. The city's initial offer was $2 million plus policy reforms. Kendra's attorneys rejected it immediately. Their counter-demand remained $12 million plus comprehensive reforms, including federal monitoring. Do you think $12 million was enough? Yes or no?
The lawsuit had forced discovery of documents the Willow Creek Police Department had tried to bury. What emerged was a picture of systematic racial profiling enabled by policy, protected by supervisors, and celebrated by wealthy residents who wanted certain people kept out of their neighborhood. A 2019 memo from the Willow Creek Homeowners Association to Chief Warren. Our residents pay premium property taxes and expect premium security. We need assurance that individuals who don't reside here won't be permitted to loiter or conduct unauthorized business in our community. Translation: keep black people out unless they're working for white residents. A 2020 training document titled Community Policing in Affluent Areas included guidance that basically encouraged profiling. Officers should be attentive to individuals whose appearance or behavior suggests they may not be residents. Polite inquiry about their business in the community is appropriate. A 2021 email chain between patrol officers showed explicit racial bias. One officer wrote, "Another complaint about suspicious black guy near the tennis courts. Guess I'll go tell him to move along." Another responded, "That's the third one this week. These people don't get the hint." These documents, official police communications, proved the department had created a culture where racial profiling wasn't just tolerated, but expected. Expert witness Dr. Jennifer Martinez, a professor of criminal justice specializing in police bias, provided analysis. Officer Caldwell didn't act alone. He acted as a product of a system that trained him to see black presence in white spaces as inherently suspicious. His failure to recognize federal credentials, his immediate assumption of criminality, his escalation despite clear warnings, these weren't individual failures, these were predictable outcomes of inadequate training combined with institutional racism. The revelation that shocked even seasoned civil rights attorneys: Caldwell's academy training included only 2 hours on implicit bias. No practical scenarios, no assessment of racial assumptions, no training on recognizing professional credentials from other agencies, just a PowerPoint presentation that officers could sleep through, and Academy records suggest many did. His field training officer evaluations noted, Caldwell demonstrates good law enforcement instincts, proactive about addressing suspicious activity. But the same evaluations never defined what suspicious meant, or challenged whether Caldwell's instincts were based on actual threat assessment or racial assumptions. The Willow Creek PD had failed at every level, failed to provide adequate training, failed to supervise rookies properly, failed to address pattern complaints, failed to correct biased policies, and failed to hold anyone accountable until federal intervention forced their hand.
This ain't the way customers. This ain't a shelter, buddy.
I'm just reading my Bible and I know my rights, sir.
Rights? You think you got rights with pocket change and that stinky jacket?
Officer, this is harassment and racism. Plain and simple. You're gonna regret this.
Yeah, buddy, we'll see about that.
The video begins abruptly. No build-up, no explanation. Just a shaky phone recording of a black man standing quietly on a public sidewalk, Bible in his hands, and an officer already in his face. The cop's tone is sharp, hostile, dripping with contempt from the very first breath. The man, Elijah,
doesn't move, doesn't raise his voice. He simply holds his worn Bible against his chest, its edges frayed from years of use. Then it happens. A sudden lunge. The officer tears the Bible from Elijah's hands, pages scattering across the concrete like wounded birds. Gasps erupt from bystanders. Phones rise. Everything is recorded. This single moment, this violent destruction of a sacred object didn't just spark outrage. It triggered national protests, flooded social media timelines, and ignited a $16 million federal lawsuit that would expose deliberate, malicious abuse of power. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light. But what exactly led to this Bible being ripped from Elijah's hands? And what did the officer never expect hundreds of witnesses to capture?
Seattle, Washington, Pike Street, 3 blocks from Pike Place Market, 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday in October. Temperature 54 degrees, overcast sky, steady foot traffic. Storefronts lined both sides. Coffee shops, bookstores, souvenir stands. The kind of urban sidewalk where dozens of people pass every minute. Elijah Thompson sat on a public bench reading his Bible. He was 52 years old, a community outreach coordinator for a local nonprofit serving homeless youth. He'd worked there for 8 years, known throughout the neighborhood as someone who listened without judgment, who offered help without conditions, who treated every person with dignity. He wasn't homeless himself. He lived in a modest apartment with his wife of 27 years. But his work brought him into daily contact with people experiencing homelessness, and over time he'd adopted practical clothing. Worn jeans, a secondhand jacket with frayed cuffs, comfortable walking shoes, clothes suitable for unpredictable work. That afternoon he'd taken his lunch break on Pike Street, as he often did. The bench provided good visibility. People who needed help knew where to find him. He'd purchased a sandwich from a nearby deli and settled in to read scripture while he ate. His Bible was a King James version he'd received as a teenager, more than 35 years old. Its black leather cover was cracked and worn smooth from countless readings. Pages were dog-eared, underlined, annotated with decades of thoughts and prayers. It wasn't just a book, it was a spiritual companion that had traveled with him through every significant moment of his adult life. Officer Craig Mitchell had been with the Seattle Police Department for 6 years. His assignment was downtown patrol, specifically Pike Street Commercial Corridor enforcement. His job was maintaining business-friendly environments by addressing behaviors merchants complained about: aggressive panhandling, public intoxication, obstruction. But Mitchell's interpretation of that mandate had generated complaints. 7 formal grievances in 6 years, all involving confrontations with people he'd assumed were homeless, all involving aggressive enforcement of minor infractions or invented violations, and all involving people of color. That afternoon, Mitchell received a call from a boutique clothing store manager. The complaint: "There's a homeless man sitting on the bench outside my shop. He's been there over an hour. Customers are uncomfortable. Can you move him along?" Mitchell responded within minutes. He approached the bench with assumptions already formed. Homeless, loitering, probably panhandling, definitely a problem needing removal. The cell phone footage, recorded by a college student walking by, captured Mitchell's approach. His body language was aggressive from the start. No greeting, no question about whether assistance was needed, just immediate confrontation. Elijah looked up from his Bible as Mitchell's shadow fell across the pages. "You're scaring away customers. This ain't shelter, buddy." Elijah's response was calm, his voice carrying the patient tone of someone accustomed to de-escalating tense situations. "I'm just reading my Bible, and I know my rights, sir." Mitchell stepped closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "Rights? You think you got rights with pocket change in that stinky jacket?" The cell phone footage captured Elijah's face clearly. No anger, no aggression, just weary recognition of what was happening. Another encounter with authority that saw his appearance and made assumptions about his worth.
Elijah stood slowly, deliberately, his Bible held against his chest. He was shorter than Mitchell, slighter in build, no physical threat whatsoever, but his voice carried quiet strength. "Officer, this is harassment. This is racism. You're going to regret this." Mitchell's face flushed red. The cell phone footage captured his expression perfectly. Rage at being challenged, fury at having his authority questioned. "Yeah, we'll see about that." What happened next was captured from 4 different angles. The college student's phone, a security camera from the boutique, a tourist's camera filming the street scene, and Mitchell's own body cam. Mitchell lunged forward and ripped the Bible from Elisha's hands with violent force. The sudden movement was so aggressive that Elisha stumbled backward. The Bible, held together by decades of wear and fragile binding, came apart in Mitchell's grip. Pages scattered. Loose sheets of annotated scripture drifted across the concrete sidewalk like wounded birds. The leather cover dangled from Mitchell's hand, separated from its spine. Decades of spiritual documentation, personal notes, family history documented in margins, all torn, scattered, destroyed. The gasps were audible on every recording. Bystanders froze. Someone shouted, "What are you doing?" Another voice, "That's his Bible. You can't do that." Phones rose immediately. Within seconds, a dozen people were recording. Elisha dropped to his knees, reaching for the scattered pages with shaking hands. His face showed pure anguish, not for himself, but for the sacred object that had been violated. Mitchell grabbed Elisha's shoulder and yanked him backward. "Get up! You're under arrest." "For what?" Elisha's voice broke. "Reading scripture? Resisting lawful commands, trespassing, obstructing public access." Every charge was false. The bench was public property. Elisha had committed no violation, and the only resistance came after Mitchell destroyed his Bible. But Mitchell forced Elisha's arms behind his back anyway, applying handcuffs with excessive force. "Stop resisting!" The cell phone footage showed clearly. Elisha wasn't resisting. He was crying, tears streaming down his face as he watched strangers gathering pages of his Bible from the sidewalk, trying to preserve what Mitchell had destroyed. "I'm not resisting. Please, just let me get my Bible." Mitchell shoved him toward the patrol car, Bible pages crunching under their feet. The tourist's video captured Mitchell's face in profile. He was smirking. The crowd grew. Voices rose. Someone yelled, "This is police brutality." Another, "He didn't do anything wrong." A woman in business attire stepped forward, holding her phone high. "I'm recording this. Everyone is recording this." Mitchell paused, his head swiveling to take in the crowd. Phones everywhere, cameras capturing every angle, witnesses documenting everything. And in that moment, captured clearly on multiple recordings, his smirk disappeared, replaced by realization that he'd made a catastrophic mistake. What would you have done if you witnessed this officer rip a Bible out of someone's hands on a public sidewalk?
The first video hit TikTok at 2:47 p.m., 17 minutes after Mitchell ripped the Bible from Elijah's hands. The caption? "Seattle cop destroys black man's Bible for reading on public bench. This is America." Within an hour, 50,000 views. Within 3 hours, 500,000. By evening, 2 million. The algorithm favored outrage, and this video delivered it. Clear injustice, obvious abuse of power, visceral violation of something sacred. Twitter erupted simultaneously. The hashtag BibleRipped began trending at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. By 6 p.m., #1 trend nationwide. By 8 p.m., 3.5 million tweets. The responses came in waves. Faith leaders of every denomination condemned the act. "Destroying someone's Bible is an assault on religious freedom," tweeted a prominent evangelical pastor with 2 million followers. A Catholic bishop called it unconscionable desecration. Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, and Buddhist leaders issued solidarity statements, recognizing destruction of sacred text as an assault transcending denomination. Civil rights organizations mobilized immediately.
The ACLU Washington chapter issued a statement within 3 hours. This incident represents multiple constitutional violations: First Amendment religious freedom, Fourth Amendment unlawful seizure, 14th Amendment equal protection. We are investigating potential legal action. The Seattle Police Department's initial response was tone-deaf and defensive. At 5:30 p.m., their official Twitter posted, "We are aware of video circulating online. The incident is under review." The officer followed standard protocol for addressing trespassing violations. The backlash was immediate and furious. Standard protocol includes destroying religious texts? Comments flooded in by the thousands, all expressing disbelief and anger. But it was the human story, Elijah's story, that transformed outrage into movement. By Thursday evening, local news had identified Elijah and begun reporting his background. He wasn't homeless. He was a community outreach coordinator. He'd spent 8 years serving Seattle's most vulnerable populations. He was known, respected, loved in the neighborhoods where he worked. King 5 News ran a segment featuring interviews with people who knew him. A young woman, now employed and housed, described how Elijah had helped her escape sex trafficking. "He gave me his coat when I was freezing. He found me shelter. He treated me like a human being when everyone else looked through me. And this cop treated him like garbage." A pastor at Pike Street Church, where Elijah volunteered, described the Bible that had been destroyed. "That Bible was older than most people in my congregation. Elijah brought it to every Bible study. He'd show us notes his mother wrote in the margins before she passed. That wasn't just a book. It was his family history." Photos emerged of Elijah teaching Bible study to homeless youth, leading prayer circles in shelters, handing out meals while carrying that same worn Bible. Every image reinforced the same message. This wasn't a random person harassed by police. This was a pillar of the community, targeted because an officer saw his appearance and made assumptions based on bias. By Friday morning, the story had gone national. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all running segments. The Atlantic published an essay, "When Police Destroy Sacred Objects: The Elijah Thompson Case and Religious Freedom Under Color of Law." Seattle City Hall faced growing pressure. The mayor's office released a statement Friday afternoon. "The incident involving Mr. Thompson is deeply troubling. We have launched a full investigation and are committed to accountability." But accountability seemed unlikely when Friday evening the Seattle Police Officers Guild released their own statement defending Mitchell. Officer Mitchell responded to a legitimate business complaint and acted within his authority to address trespassing. The use of force was minimal and appropriate. That statement, defending the destruction of a Bible and false arrest of someone committing no crime, ignited a new wave of fury. Protests were organized for Saturday. Faith leaders called for mass demonstrations. Community organizations mobilized. And then, Friday night at 11:47 p.m., attorney Benjamin Crump announced on Twitter that his firm would represent Elijah Thompson in a federal civil rights lawsuit. Crump, known for representing families of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery, brought instant credibility and national attention. His statement was unequivocal. What happened to Elijah Thompson was not just an unlawful arrest. It was a spiritual violation. It was a racist assault disguised as law enforcement, and it will not be unanswered. We are filing a federal lawsuit seeking accountability and justice. The lawsuit would be filed Monday morning. The amount? $16 million. Do you think the officer ripped the Bible out of anger or out of racial bias?
Saturday morning, as thousands gathered for protests outside Seattle Police Headquarters, new footage emerged that transformed the narrative from outrageous to damning. A security camera from a building across the street had captured the entire encounter from an elevated angle. The footage, obtained by local news through public records request, showed details the street-level cell phone videos had missed. It showed Mitchell approaching while Elijah was clearly reading,
Not panhandling, not harassing anyone, just sitting peacefully. It showed Mitchell's aggressive posture from the first moment. No attempt at de-escalation, no professional inquiry, just immediate confrontation. And it showed something that made every viewer's stomach turn. After ripping the Bible from Elijah's hands, after pages had scattered across the sidewalk, Mitchell stepped deliberately on several pages while forcing Elijah toward the patrol car. Not accidentally, deliberately. His boot came down on scripture with obvious intention. The footage went viral within hours. The symbolism was inescapable. An officer literally trampling sacred text while arresting someone for reading it. But there was more. A bystander filming from inside the boutique captured audio the outdoor recordings had missed. As Mitchell handcuffed Elijah, he'd muttered, barely audible but caught clearly, "Should have stayed in your own neighborhood." The racial animus was explicit, undeniable. Mitchell hadn't just seen someone he assumed was homeless. He'd seen a black man in a commercial area he believed black people didn't belong in. Then came the whistleblower. Saturday afternoon, a Seattle PD patrol officer named Marcus Rivera contacted Benjamin Crum's office. Rivera had worked with Mitchell for 3 years, and he had stories. Rivera provided documentation, incident reports, internal communications, witness statements, showing Mitchell had a pattern of targeting black people in commercial districts. 7 documented incidents over 4 years. Black woman waiting for bus, accused of loitering with intent to solicit. No solicitation occurred. Charges dropped. Black teenager with skateboard, accused of intimidating customers. Video showed he was standing quietly. Charges dropped. Black man in business suit, accused of suspicious activity. He was a hotel guest checking his phone. Complaint filed, dismissed. Black elderly woman with shopping bags, accused of obstruction. She was waiting for her daughter. Charges dropped. Black college student studying on bench, accused of trespassing. Public property. Charges dropped. Black delivery driver accused of casing vehicles. He was checking addresses. Charges dropped. And finally, Elijah Thompson, reading Bible on public bench, Bible destroyed, arrested for resisting. The pattern was unmistakable. Mitchell specifically targeted black people in commercial areas, inventing violations to justify removals, escalating when challenged. Every case resulted in dropped charges because no actual violations occurred.
Rivera's whistleblower statement included internal communications showing supervisors were aware of complaints but took no action beyond perfunctory retraining notes. An email from March 2021 showed a sergeant responding to a complaint about Mitchell. Mitchell's enforcement approach is aggressive but effective at maintaining business district appearance standards. Continue monitoring, but no discipline warranted. Translation: we know he's profiling, but businesses like it, so we're allowing it. The Seattle Times obtained these documents Sunday morning and ran a front-page investigation. Officer who destroyed Bible had pattern of targeting black people. Supervisors knew and did nothing. By Sunday afternoon, the scope of liability had expanded exponentially. This wasn't just about one incident. This was institutional tolerance of discriminatory enforcement. This was supervisory failure. This was systemic racism enabled by policy. Constitutional law professor Amanda Chen was interviewed by CNN Sunday evening. She broke down the violations. First Amendment: destroying religious text violates free exercise of religion. Fourth Amendment: seizing and destroying personal property without cause violates protection against unreasonable seizure. 14th Amendment: targeting based on race violates equal protection. Beyond that, malicious destruction of property, false arrest, intentional infliction of emotional distress. This is textbook constitutional violation across multiple amendments. Faith leaders held a prayer vigil Sunday evening at the bench where Elijah had been arrested. Thousands attended. Religious leaders from 20 faith traditions spoke. Jewish rabbis stood beside Muslim imams, beside Christian pastors, beside Buddhist monks. The message was unified. Destroying sacred text
is an assault on all faiths. Elijah attended the vigil. He was presented with scattered pages witnesses had collected and preserved. A professional book conservator had volunteered to attempt restoration. Elijah wept as he held the fragments. His statement was brief and powerful. That Bible traveled with me for 35 years. It held my mother's handwritten notes. It carried my family's prayers across decades. Officer Mitchell didn't just tear pages. He tore my history, my faith, my connection to everyone I've loved and lost. No amount of money will restore what was destroyed, but accountability, that can prevent the next person from experiencing what I experienced. What shocked you the most? The ripping of the Bible or the smirk cut on video afterward? Monday morning at 9 a.m., Benjamin Crump stood at a podium outside the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Washington. Behind him stood Elijah Thompson, his wife Sarah, their pastor, representatives from the ACLU, the NAACP, the National Council of Churches, and the Interfaith Alliance. Crump held up the federal lawsuit, 73 pages of claims, evidence, and demands for accountability. Today, we are filing a $16 million federal civil rights lawsuit against Officer Craig Mitchell, his supervisors who enabled his behavior, and the city of Seattle. This lawsuit addresses not just the destruction of Elijah Thompson's Bible, but a pattern of racist enforcement that has terrorized black citizens in this city for years. The lawsuit named 6 defendants: Officer Craig Mitchell, Sergeant David Walsh, Lieutenant Rebecca Mills, Captain Thomas Rivera, Police Chief Adrian Diaz, and the City of Seattle. The legal claims were comprehensive: violation of First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, 14th Amendment rights, malicious destruction of property, false arrest, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligent supervision, and municipal liability for deliberate indifference to constitutional violations.
But the evidence section was devastating. Video from 7 angles, audio recordings, witness statements from 43 people, Mitchell's complete disciplinary history, internal department communications showing awareness of his pattern, expert testimony on religious freedom and constitutional law, psychological evaluation of Elijah documenting trauma. The damages demand broke down specifically: $2 million for destruction of irreplaceable religious property with sentimental value, $3 million for emotional distress and psychological harm, $5 million for violation of civil rights under color of law, $6 million in punitive damages to punish deliberate misconduct. The Seattle City Attorney's Office issued a response Monday afternoon. We take these allegations seriously and are reviewing the complaint. However, we believe the claims mischaracterize the incident. We intend to defend vigorously. That defense would collapse within weeks. Discovery requests flooded the department. Every email about Mitchell, every complaint, every training record, every internal memo discussing enforcement strategies in commercial districts. What emerged painted a picture of deliberate policy. In 2019, the Seattle Downtown Association, a business advocacy group, had lobbied the mayor and police chief to increase quality of life enforcement in commercial areas. Translated, removing homeless people and others deemed bad for business. Internal police memos showed commanders directing officers to be proactive about appearance management and maintaining business-friendly environments. Officers were told to move along people who don't appear to be shopping or conducting legitimate business. One training document in 2020 included photos of behaviors to address, and every single photo showed a person of color sitting, standing, or existing in public space. Mitchell had been following policy. The problem was, the policy itself was discriminatory. Depositions began in January. Mitchell's deposition was a disaster for the defense. Under oath, he couldn't explain why he'd assumed Elijah was homeless. He couldn't identify what specific law Elijah violated. He couldn't justify destroying the Bible except to say, "I needed to move him along." When asked why he'd stepped on Bible pages,
Mitchell claimed accident, but video showed deliberate movement. When asked about the "stay in your own neighborhood" comment, Mitchell denied it, but audio proved he had. When asked about his pattern targeting black people, Mitchell claimed he didn't see race, but his record showed 86% of his quality of life stops involved people of color in a city that was 67% white.
The supervisor's depositions were equally damaging. Sergeant Walsh admitted awareness of complaints, but viewed Mitchell as effective at maintaining order. Lieutenant Mills acknowledged she'd seen the pattern, but considered it enforcement discretion. The city's defense attorney tried one last strategy: qualified immunity. They argued Mitchell's actions, even if wrong, didn't violate clearly established constitutional rights. Federal Judge Patricia Gonzalez rejected that argument in a scathing written opinion. The right to read religious text in public without having that text destroyed by police is so obviously established that no reasonable officer could have believed otherwise. Destroying a Bible and arresting someone for reading it violates clearly established First, Fourth, and 14th Amendment protections. Qualified immunity does not apply. With qualified immunity stripped, the city faced a trial it couldn't win. The evidence was overwhelming, the video undeniable, the pattern documented, and the jury pool in Seattle would be sympathetic to Elijah. Settlement negotiations began in February. Should destroying someone's Bible be treated the same as assault? Why or why not? The settlement was announced in March, 5 months after Officer Mitchell ripped Elijah Thompson's Bible from his hands. The city of Seattle agreed to pay $16 million, one of the largest civil rights settlements in the city's history and the largest ever for religious freedom violations. But the money was only part. The settlement included comprehensive reforms: immediate termination of Officer Craig Mitchell with permanent revocation of law enforcement certification, demotion of Sergeant David Walsh for supervisory failure, suspension without pay for Lieutenant Rebecca Mills, mandatory retirement of Captain Thomas Rivera, 3-year federal consent decree requiring independent monitoring of downtown enforcement, complete ban on quality-of-life enforcement policies targeting people based on appearance, mandatory implicit bias training for all officers with annual recertification, creation of independent oversight board with authority to investigate and recommend discipline, implementation of religious freedom protections prohibiting interference with religious activity in public spaces, quarterly public reporting of all stops by race, location, and outcome, $2 million allocated to community organizations serving homeless populations, and public apology from police chief and mayor acknowledging systemic discrimination. The press conference was held at Pike Street Church. Elijah stood at the podium, hands resting on a newly bound Bible, the restored original, carefully reconstructed by a conservator who'd volunteered hundreds of hours. The restoration had been painstaking, pages repaired with archival techniques, tears mended with Japanese tissue paper, annotations preserved, his mother's handwriting, faded but legible, carefully stabilized, the binding rebuilt using traditional bookbinding methods.
It wasn't perfect. The scars remained, but it was whole again. Elijah's statement was measured and powerful. 5 months ago, I was sitting on a public bench reading scripture when Officer Mitchell decided I didn't belong. He saw my worn jacket and assumed I was homeless. He saw my skin color and assumed I was a problem. He saw my Bible and decided it was disposable. What he destroyed wasn't just pages and binding. It was my connection to my mother, who wrote notes in these margins before she passed. It was my family's spiritual history. It was my faith made tangible. He paused, holding up the restored Bible. This book teaches forgiveness, and I forgive Officer Mitchell. But forgiveness doesn't mean consequences shouldn't follow. It means I release my anger while insisting on justice. Mitchell lost his career. That's appropriate. The city paid $16 million. That's accountability. The reforms will protect others. That's progress. But the real change comes when we as a society decide that everyone, regardless of how they look, where they sit, or what they read, deserves dignity and constitutional protection. Faith leaders from across the country had traveled to Seattle. They stood united behind Elijah, representing the interfaith coalition that had supported him throughout. Reverend William Barber, a prominent civil rights leader, spoke. What happened to Elijah Thompson is what happens when we allow appearance to determine humanity, when we permit business interests to override constitutional rights, when we tolerate racist enforcement because it keeps certain people out of certain spaces. This settlement is a victory, but the fight for equal treatment in public spaces continues in every city in America. The settlement funds were distributed with deliberate purpose. Elijah received $14 million personally. He immediately donated $2 million to homeless services organizations in Seattle. Another $1 million went to establish a legal defense fund for people experiencing homelessness. The remaining $11 million was placed in trust to support his family and fund his ongoing advocacy work. Officer Craig Mitchell released no statement. He disappeared from public view after termination. His law enforcement career ended at age 32. The supervisors who'd enabled him faced professional consequences, but remained employed. The culture that had protected Mitchell for 6 years was finally forced to change, not through internal accountability, but through external pressure and a $16 million price tag. The restored Bible became a symbol. Elijah donated it to the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C., where it's now displayed as testimony to both violation and resilience. Visitors read the description: Bible belonging to Elijah Thompson, destroyed by Seattle police officer during unlawful arrest, October 2022. Restored through community effort. Symbol of faith preserved, despite assault on dignity.
The case triggered nationwide conversation about religious freedom in public spaces, the criminalization of homelessness, and racial profiling in commercial areas. The ACLU cited it in briefs across the country. Religious liberty organizations used it as precedent. Civil rights advocates pointed to it as evidence of systemic discrimination requiring federal intervention. Seattle City Council, under intense public pressure, adopted comprehensive de-escalation policies. Annual reports on police harassment became mandatory. Independent oversight was finally empowered with real authority. The reforms that should have existed before Elijah's Bible was destroyed were finally implemented after. But for Elijah, the victory was bittersweet. The money provided security. The reforms prevented future harm. The recognition validated his experience. But his Bible, held together now by restoration rather than natural wear, would never be the same. The pages his mother touched were forever marked by violence. The book that had traveled with him through joy and grief now carried the additional weight of trauma. He continues his outreach work. He still sits on Pike Street benches, though now he carries the restored Bible and a protective case. He still reads Scripture to anyone who needs comfort. He still offers dignity to those society overlooks, but he does it with the knowledge that even faith, even sacred text, even constitutional rights offer no protection when an officer decides your presence doesn't belong. The $16 million said that violation has a price. The reforms said the system must change. But the restored Bible, beautiful and scarred, says some damages can't be fully repaired, only witnessed and remembered. What reforms do you think every police department should implement to prevent abuses like this? Before we end this story, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light.